All right, everyone. We will call to order our November 14, 2022 East Ascension Drainage meeting. Let's see, roll call. Ms. Secretary, we are missing Mr. Turner, Mr. Ogeron, Mr. Lambert, and Mr. Mason. We have 6 of us present. At this point, public comments. For anyone who wants to speak on any agenda item, please come see Ms. Daigle over here. She'll get you a red or green card. You can talk on the agenda item you wish to. Now we're going to go to the invocation led by Mr. Cagnalotti and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Chase. In the Father, and Son, Holy Spirit, amen. I'm going to recite a prayer for our veterans. Lord, we thank you for our veterans, for their willingness to risk all so that our nation might dwell in peace and safety. May they find the honor and recognition that they truly deserve. We pray that you will heal the physical, spiritual, and psychological wounds some of our veterans have suffered, bringing a lasting peace to those who mourn the loss of comrades. Please help them to find your love and mercy. And therefore, Holy Father, we ask you to bless all of our military veterans. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item number 4, acceptance of minutes from the October 11, 2022 drainage meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lawler, second by Ms. Casso. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Item 5, chairman's reports, announcements. I have none tonight. We'll move straight into general business. Item 6A, approval of waiver request from Conway Development LLC of the Ascension Parish Land Developmental Code to allow for permitting and construction of a mechanical stormwater pumping system for the purpose of maintaining the design of static water surface elevation and resulting required detention volume in the existing and proposed detention pond. Stormwater detention design requirements are as follows. The outfall storm water retention facility shall be gravity driven. Mechanical systems such as pumps should not be used for discharging flow from the retention ponds. So I don't know if we have anyone from quality who wants to jump start for us. And just as a brief overview, what y'all are asking is to potentially install is still due to the ERA through our ERA. Why am I brain farting? CSRS. I'm sorry. So it still has to get approved. But what y'all are asking is the ability to force pump within the boundaries of your development.
So for the record, Jeff Valley, 13406 Seymour Myers, Covington. Here representing the developer, Southern Lifestyle. So yeah, we are here seeking a waiver to a drainage ordinance that you all have that states that we can't use mechanical pumps within our retention ponds. But we've been working with the parish's drainage staff and the ERA for the last year through a drainage impact study and many other technical documents that we're nearing approval, I suppose. I would ask maybe Ron or Sean to update that. And one of the things that they said we needed to do from just kind of a housekeeping setup is come and get a waiver of this drainage ordinance. So we're here tonight. I've got kind of the full team with us. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, okay. I will open up questions. Before I go to Mr. Robert, would administration like to say anything, or would y'all like to hear any questions first before y'all address anything? If not, I'll go to Mr. Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
I think it's important to know a quick, small explanation on who's going to be responsible for the pumps, who's going to be responsible for maintaining them, operating them. I just think that the board should have some clarification on that. So if we could have somebody come up and talk about that part of it. Sure.
I should mention that Mr. Alvin's here tonight with the city, and they're here to sign a support for us. So the maintenance has, for the last 6 months been established. It's going to be on the Homeowners Association. More specifically, I think it will not be the responsibility of the Drainage District nor the Parish of Ascension.
All right, I'm gonna go to Mr. Robert. Mr. Robert was first.
How you doing, Mr. Valley?
Good.
I think you forgot to mention he's a born resident of Ascension, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
My question is to the Conway development, and I don't know if this pertains to this particular problem that has been identified in the past, but I've had a developer on the other side of y'all come to me, and I'm sure they've come to you. Doug Diaz?
Probably so, yep. We were on a call with them last week.
Okay. So whenever y'all built, apparently there is a fault or there was a mistake in either the engineering or the drainage engineering or something to where that outfall does not outfall off of his property. That's something that I would like to address in the very near future, however we can. Does this particular situation apply to that?
So it's an aside to what we're here to request tonight, approval of, but I'll tell you that we met with their engineer and our engineer just 2 weeks ago and came up with a technical modification to the infall where they're draining into that we believe will benefit them.
Because, I mean, and I mean, this is just my opinion. I would feel way more comfortable if we could have something resolved with that or some commit in that to go along with this before we move on to more.
Yeah, well, and I should clarify too, I don't know that there's been an acknowledged fault or flaw in any of the
They've got a
engineering.
lot of engineering and a lot of
Design.
basis back and forth.
Right.
And both sides have admitted that there is a fault, but, you know, it's always that who wants to take accountability for it.
We're happy to coordinate with them. We have already. I'm taking their calls for sure.
Cool. Good seeing you.
Mr. Lawler.
Perfect timing. It's in my eye. Sorry. I have a couple questions. I'll start with the funding part of it. Do we have any long-term costs for maintenance, replacement, and, you know, how, and is this in the contract with the HOA?
Correct, yeah, we've done a reserve study on the system out to, I think it's 15 years, which is the life of the pumps, and in order to be able to buy them when the time comes. And
Okay.
it backs in for what it's worth to about $3,000 a month about $36,000 a year.
Is what the development is going to have to bring in through homeowners' cost?
Yes, sir,
$36,000
that's
a year.
right. Well, we're going to fund it for a bit, but yes, sir. Yeah, it will be handled by the developer and then the community itself, the homeowners association.
Is there a backup plan in case the HOA doesn't do it? Because we've got a lot of situations where HOAs don't pay.
Well, the
And-
system flows under gravity now, so, you know, the backup, if the pump system kind of stopped being operated or failed, the community still drains, the same as it does today. So the pumping system is going to create storage in the ponds prior to a storm event.
Okay, so that was kind of my next question. What's making this necessary?
Because we have a backwater condition. So when Conway was originally built and the original drainage impact study was approved, the receiving streams was at an elevation below 2, and that receiving stream now is up over 4. And that's we've done a complete study on it. Your staff's aware of it, but, you know, it's something that we can't control because it goes well off-site. So we're controlling what we can control.
Do we know why the receiving stream has gotten higher?
I'll defer to others to answer that. It's well off of our property.
Okay, can somebody?
Yeah, Mr.
Sure,
Savoy.
Chairman, if you don't mind, I'll give you a little background and explanation from what we found. Back when this first came up to light of the backwater being an issue, Conway had already built out what's out there now. And we started getting city complaints from residents within there. Hey, we got water flooding in the streets, what's going on? Came to us to look into that as what's going on with the outfall, the channel leaving out of the development. What we found was there's 5 pipes that drain out of Conway development that bring their water from their ponds to the so-called downstream outfall. Those pipes are 95% full of water today. You can go to the catch basins in the street and look in them on the side of the road, and they're full of water. So there's no storage right now in the development. Therefore, rainfall comes, it pulls out in the streets, and it floods the streets.
So we went downstream and looked further into it, and it crosses I-10, and it goes into some private property. That private property is a 200-plus acre mitigation bank that's been established and permitted by the Corps of Engineers. That was all set up in 2011 and approved by the Corps. That water then goes through that mitigation bank and on to Bayou Conway. So we reached out to ELOS and asked them about the channels in the mitigation bank and to do some research on it. They found that all the mitigation credits in that bank have been sold, and so you can't go in and create impact in that wetland mitigation bank to do any work. You'd have to pay for the impacts of that property. So that being said, we actually had Hartman Engineering, when he first came on, take a look at the original drainage impact study. That's where we found there was a number in that original drainage impact study that said the downstream water surface elevation was between a 1.5 or a 2 foot, whereas in reality it was verified it's at a 4. So there's no storage capacity within the ponds. So all the factors that we found, it wasn't like our operations guys could go out and dig a ditch and fix the problem. One, we don't have any right-of-ways through that mitigation bank. And two, if we did, we'd have to pay mitigation at $60,000 to $70,000 an acre. So we hired, that's basically was validated by Hartman's investigation. We then got with the ERA, a CSRS, turned over that information to them. And at that point, we're at a situation where gravity is only going to do so much. And unfortunately, in the Conway and Panama Basin, it's still a 100% gravity flow system. And when you get a backwater event and rainfall happening at the same time in that basin, Conway's not the only area that has problems. Look at Southwood subdivision on Highway 30. They have trouble with backwater. So there's several other developments in that watershed that have this scenario. And unfortunately, this one is pretty severe, and it's backed up, and they want to build more filings. So we suggested that they look for a mitigation effort for the first filing and including the proposed filings before they move to construction, and that's where their engineers are coming up with a proposed pump.
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yeah, so forward-looking, because this will help mitigate the storage issue inside the subdivision with the pumps, but one of the 60 projects was Hackett Canal. In that area, there's a school board property within Conway on the back side of that piece. So we're going to have a future school there, obviously. And so it is one of the areas that we're looking at. I'm not sure, Daniel, where that Hackett Canal project fell out. Did it make the 30? I'm trying to remember. It did. Yeah. Due to the amount of development in the area, we need to take a hard look at what the solutions may be in the near future due to the fact of a school coming and additional expansion of subdivisions and growth in that area. So that's one of the things. The second thing, further down the line, which is a current project, is the Sorrento surge protection. That's pumping stations at Panama and Conway. And Sorrento, that will help regulate the waters in Panama and Conway in order to pull down capacity within the channels, not to have backwater events. So that is further down the road, obviously. A pump station and funding and all is usually a 10-year or decade project. But these are things that are coming in the area due to the fact of the number of problems we're having in that area. So I just wanted to point that out. There's something to be looking forward to, but it doesn't solve the issue at hand that we have today. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you still have the floor. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay. The error that was found, the 1.5 to 4 feet, was that an actual error, or was that simply the water has changed? Do we know that?
We had a change in developer in this process, so it was some of the early engineering that took place. I'd imagine that would have been somewhere in there. I would have to get Hartman to talk about maybe what they saw in their study, but I know that this was once owned by a different developer and engineering company. They left, and then somebody else has picked it up to to move it forward from there. So probably happened in the original stages, original design, and I think that's probably where the problem occurred.
Yeah, I would think if it was an error, though, that original engineering company should pick up the tab instead of the residents of Conway, at least for the initial installation of the pumps. Because that seems to be the problem here. If they would have seen that early on, this could have been fixed before we get to this point. And you know, the concern is, we also, I think Belle Sylvain has a similar problem with their roads back up. Just having, what is the basis for not wanting, and Ron, I can ask you this, or Clint, for not wanting to have mechanical pumps?
You want to ensure that you have natural hydrology and topographic features that allow the subdivision regardless of mechanical or not, because of mechanical failure on such a small project. It is the solution here. It doesn't cost the parish anything. This is a city project. So the developer's willing to fund the pumps, and then the HOA picks it up, obviously. I would mount a backup plan to what happens if the HOA becomes defunct or fails. Will the city of Gonzales pick that up? I don't know that. That may be something that needs to be clarified. I'm not sure. But the developer's going to front the cost, and they're going to pay for it. This is just our approval for to get around our rules and regulations in the city. But this is obviously something that passed the city planning commission, and they're looking, from what I understand, to move it forward, but need our permission to get past ERA and staff in order to move forward with the mechanical pumps.
I mean, it sounds promising to help the people of Conway. Just leave it at that.
Mr. Robert.
And these questions are addressed to administration also. And I mean, quality, if y'all want to give me some answers for it, but I think they're going to have more so. And to jump off of what you were asking about the mechanical pumps, a downfall of them, I feel another downfall of the mechanical pumps, when I say downfall, to where it needs to be brought to our attention to make sure it doesn't, like he said, fail, not be operated. But we also have to look at the fact that it's pushing water outside of that development somewhere else quicker. Now, is that going to be an issue? I don't know. I feel like that's something we definitely need to look at, because I know that Hackett Canal project, that's somewhere that myself and President Quintmall were scheduled to go last month, and some things came up. Because we have some things going all the way, we have some issues going all the way down from Brittany Tower, where Hackett Canal goes, which is connected to the development, down Ernest Floyd. A lot of those issues, and we still have some more engineering to be done, but it seems like a lot of the issues can be solved with closing off the spoil bank in some different spots of the Panama Canal, where currently when the water level gets so high, water just flows in, and it would make a huge difference. So I'd like to see the reality of us doing that project, and Ron's opinion and your opinion, if this would solve whatever extra water would be pushed onto these residents through Hackett Canal, because I know we have an issue with Hackett Canal now. I know we're not talking about a whole lot of water. Conway residents are also my constituents, and I want to represent them, and I love the development, to be honest with you. I think it's a great asset, and I think it'll continue to be. But in the same sense, I owe those constituents in Conway to not leave them in a situation where they're footed with the bill for some pumps that really shouldn't have had to be involved because of a mistake in some engineering, because somebody took some wrong measurements. I don't know if this is something that the rest of the board would feel comfortable pushing to another meeting so we can get some of the answers. But that's just a thought I'll throw on there, and I'll defer to you for some answers. So.
Yeah, I don't mean to belabor any point. I do want to congratulate the council on adopting regulations in the parish that require a developer to dig out to the nearest outfall. That would have helped this particular situation, or it wouldn't be developed. So kudos to the council for adopting those stricter parish regulations. This is going to be modeled this area, obviously, with the 30 projects from FMP. So we're going to find some solutions here. We're going to let, the software gurus model that, find out where the water's going and what improvements need to be made. So it's definitely an area we're looking at because of the immense development there in the past few years. So we're going to find some solutions. Don't necessarily have them today. I do want to point out, if ponds are such a parish issue, if we ever decide to do mechanical pumps or allow something like this, my suggestion to the board would be to apply a tax to the subdivision to pay for the maintenance of the pumps. Doing a TIF like we do for roads, for example. Finding a funding mechanism to do that. You're going to rely on the HOA here. But again, this is not our subdivision. They're just requesting us to bypass our mechanical pump regulation.
Ms. Casso.
Yes, Mr. President, I agree with you that we need to consider something like the road districts that in this situation. So I have three questions. First is, who is actually requesting this waiver? Is it the city that is requesting the waiver?
It would be from any subdivision that we have to do the drainage study for, and or CSRS or ERA has to do that. Then so we're over that part because City of Gonzales pays for the drainage tax, therefore we're over drainage in the area. To ensure that it works properly, our consultant reviews that drainage component instead of someone for the City of Gonzales. And he's set to follow our regulations. And so we have.
So you're saying
the
that,
developer.
This administration is requesting a waiver?
No, the developer
The
is
developer.
requesting the
Okay.
waiver.
All righty. This, as far as I can recall, is the first such waiver. Am I right about that? Okay. So while I don't have a problem with this, I think it's a very good idea, and I like your idea of the future districts to control those things. I'd like for us to soon, after this is done, start, since we are setting this precedent, to develop a set of standards for the application of this waiver. So that, because we're going to get a lot of these if we're not very very careful. And so I think we need to have a process in place by which to do that, a certain set of standards that need to be met before we would approve such a waiver. Otherwise, I think I'm certainly in favor of this one.
Yeah, I don't see this happening in the parish because of our stricter regulations. I don't think that we would have approved the first one without due diligence of checking it. Somehow it got by. And I went out and laid eyes on it myself. Those culverts are 75% full on a regular day, and there's just no capacity. And so somehow, some way, in my opinion, it was engineered incorrectly. I would hope we would have caught that at the parish and would not need mechanical pumps. But this situation has already occurred, and it is a burden on the existing residents there, and this is the only solution that I can see in helping with that situation.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, can I make one point of clarification in regards to engineering and the developer here? They have submitted the downstream modeling to CSRS. So I wanted to make sure and state that they're not done with the review process of this engineering proposed pumping station. They still have to get Corps of Engineer determination on permitting, the O&M manuals and operations. That has a big play in how these things discharge downstream. So we would hope that they would utilize them to create capacity. In other words, the pumping is similar to how we run our pumping stations. They pump the ponds down prior to events happening. Therefore, they don't have to have the pumps running in the heat of a flood event at a certain rate. But they've modeled that, they submitted it to CSRS, and this is the next step, so to say, in the review process. This is not final approval to go build the pump station. This is to continue the review process for the next milestone. So I just wanted to point that out.
Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, I was going to kind of touch on that, though, but it's It looks like we are waiving it, though. And once we waive it, it's waived. Would it be more prudent to wait to see what CSRS and the engineering says to whether or not it's necessary or will help, or?
I believe they have come to the conclusion that the pumps are needed for the drainage to function. But there are parameters around the operations and means and methods of how to incorporate that through the HOA that are still in the process. And we have all of that at the table, but we needed to know from the board, was it okay to waive this mechanical requirement?
We don't have all that, though, right? I mean, we don't have anything from CSRS saying it works or doesn't work, or?
I'm going to ask CSRS to come up to the table with that.
Oh, I see. I didn't see Sean sitting back there.
Neither did I.
Welcome to the party. Yeah, if you don't mind. I didn't even know you were here.
All right, so there's a bunch of questions that bounce around there, so maybe rephrase which question
Well, actually,
or
my-
concerns we may have.
Well, the original concern is that we're approving a waiver for the construction and permitting. And I think it's kind of contrary to saying, hey, we're going to wait and see. It looks like we're just waiving this right now, and we really don't have any information yet, from your perspective at least,
Right.
whether or not this works, whether it doesn't work, whether it's actually needed, whether it's not needed.
So you can imagine, I find this very similar to a preliminary plat process, to where it's a preliminary step, let's agree in principle what we're going to do. A lot of times it's conditioned of, or knowing you have checks and balances, like you can't, a lot of times our drainage studies in a traditional subdivision, you read the fine print. We're saying we're approving this in concept, subject to detailed construction plan review. You already have built into your process. Your ordinance says you can't request a final inspection, so you got approved plans, they got to be inspected by the testing lab, you got to do this, you got to close out process, and all of those things are built in place. So this is very similar to where we didn't want their engineers, us, City of Gonzales, to be spinning our wheels anymore around this pump concept unless we did a lot of due diligence. There was, we had Hartman and CSRS and QES. QES were not the original engineer, so they had a fresh take at it, fresh look at it. They had no skin in the game of coming themselves from the previous design. Hartman was them with the previous reviewers, CSRS the previous reviewers. We all had a fresh take. We have an existing subdivision that has existing problems. We have a new subdivision. Gonzales says you can't be dependent on the new pump, but we're asking you to sort of help out in existing situations. So I want to make sure this is not a waiver to have a pump for the next filing to work. They're going to have it work gravity driven, but it's to take care of the previous filings. And then while they're doing that, they're asking them to provide additional storage than if you were just worried about this last third filing. So I just want to make sure that's a very important. I want people that are asking for a waiver to be able to build the next filing. They have the ability to do it. They're using this as a checkpoint to have them go fix, and the developer of this newer filing, not the original developer, are coming in and saying, yes, to be good stewards and move forward with this, let's come with a pump station for the existing filings. And by the way, we're at it, it will benefit, the next filing. The next filing we built up a little bit higher just to take care of all this. So I think this is the appropriate step. A lot of times you'll see in a preliminary plat process, you could go the direction, we approve of the drainage waiver, subject to staff approval of detailed construction plans. That there is a written agreement subject to their approval at some point from possibly your attorney about if the backup plan of the HOA doesn't work out, who's the next person in line? Is it Gonzales? Is it East Ascension? You all could have made a decision you would want the pump. We didn't know yet. We don't go too far. So to get all the details and then say no. So it's my opinion, you can be approving this contingent upon a couple of things like we would have in a normal project, as you go along this process. But we've looked at it, QES and Hartman, and I won't speak too much on Hartman, but we've seen his analysis. I think the only way we've seen it to solve the existing problems is a drainage pump situation. There's really no way around it. So we're at that point. We just want to go too much further until we realize, wait a minute, this is technically a waiver. The mechanical pump station there are existing subdivisions, and you all know New Orleans and other places. It's not that it doesn't work. Ascension Parish, way back in the day, wrote an ordinance. This don't be so dependent upon East Ascension Drainage Works or a DPW to be in charge of pump maintenance systems as you're first option to design a project. So if you did that, that eliminated your footprint of your ponds. So just make it sort of, you're not allowed to do it unless you get into a unique situation. It's basically where we are. This has the proper checks and balances. If you're going to do a waiver, let's talk in a public forum. That's what we're doing here. This is to fix an existing problem. Is why I think this is waiver would be different, Ms. Casso, with someone in the future saying this is my first alternative. This is more to fix an existing problem rather than this is an easy, convenient solution for a new development.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Karen, if you'll allow me.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we grant this waiver based on the approval, and you're going to have to say of the two things for the benefit of the secretary, making it contingent upon those things.
Yeah, that's.
Would it be
Up to
upon
you all.
approval?
I'm sure the,
So contingent upon the staff's approval of the
And
project,
yours?
of the engineering or the
Yeah,
drainage
I would-
plan.
right,
You're going to have to say those two things for me.
Well, this is my suggestion. Remember, I'm making recommendations, to Ron and Parish President here, what they would want those conditions to be.
Yeah,
But
we
some
appreciate
of the
that.
conditions would be subject to approval of detailed construction plans prior than starting construction. And if y'all needed to maintain the necessary permits or proper notification from the Corps of Engineers stating that no permit is necessary, would be, to my opinion, the two big ones. Now, the details that is probably nothing to do with engineering about the ownership, then if the HOA doesn't fall through, is it the city of Gonzales? Are they willing to sign an agreement certifying that they would be the ones that comes in, should the HOA fall in place before it gets to you all? That could be something you have conditioned, like you just can't get final approval until those things are subject to attorney's approval. That can be part of your conditional approval, so you go that direction.
Did the secretary get all that? Because I don't want to have to repeat it.
Oh, no.
I'd like to see more information too, just on the numbers. What is this going to cost for maintenance over that 15-year period? What is it going to cost at the end of the lifespan of these pumps to replace them at 15 years, plus this wonderful inflation that we're going through right now? But in all seriousness, the cost is going to rise dramatically. We have to make sure that at the end of that 15 years, there's enough money there to handle those costs. Otherwise, we'll be revisiting this again. And I applaud y'all for coming and telling me, $3,600,000 a year, but I'd like to see some numbers behind that and what the cost of the pumps are, what the cost of the pumps are to put them in now, because that'll give us a good idea of what it's going to cost. We don't have any of that information, and that's one of my big concerns, is that HOAs, it just takes a couple of people not to pay, and all of a sudden they can't meet their obligations. And then when you have the neighborhoods start flooding all of a sudden, you're going to have more and more people unwilling to pay their HOA bills because they're going to say, you're not doing your thing to keep the flooding out, and it spirals out of control, and then we're going to have a problem 15 years from now. So there's got to be, we need something on this backup plan. I'm looking at you, poor Sean, you're just
Right.
standing up there.
I'll take the hit.
Taking bullets, I'm sorry. But,
take it.
and I'm not saying it's a bad
No.
idea, guys. I think we need more information on it to have a better understanding of the finances, and is it actually going to work? And is there some kind of, is this backup plan that's going to cost $3,000 or $36,000 a year, is that based on 100% payment by the HOA? Because that's not reasonable or reliable or even likely. So that's the kind of numbers that I would see, because that's important.
Not to prolong things, I just heard a number of things over the last 10 minutes I think I could clarify and would help out the group. The first is, the project has not changed hands. I want that to be known, certainly important for the city. Southern Lifestyle remains the owner of the project. Some of the faces have changed. I'm new to it from about 3 years ago, and we've engaged Quality Engineering, the local firm here, since my arrival, frankly, so the engineering firm has changed, but not the developer. I think there is maybe a more ambiguity related to how we got here than was conveyed earlier. I'm not sure that the water level was not at 1.9 or 1.5 in 2016. I've not seen any, information that suggests that those outfall pipes were put in and already half full with the day they went in. My understanding is they were dry, And the basin has had a backwater condition that's created where we are today. And I can tell you firsthand, I ran Oak Lake across the street, and Oak Lake also has about a 2-foot backwater condition in it right now. So conceivably, that would be another engineer making a mistake early on. I just don't think that's the likely scenario of how we got here. I think the basin is rising. It's got challenges related to Conway Bayou, all the way to Marpaw. I mean, their diversion projects talked about all the time, right? So just clarification there. I don't know exactly because I wasn't here in 2016, but I don't want the takeaway to be that we're now trying to compensate for a mistake that was made. Furthermore, the parish also approved that drainage impact study in 2015, I'll also mention. So, because we have to get the parish's approval, even on a city project, regarding drainage impact study and drainage. Related to the maintenance, so the construction plans, a memo of understanding that clearly clarifies the maintenance and operations obligations, a drainage impact study, an off-site drainage study, and there's probably another technical document or two that I'm not thinking of, have been completed and in the ERA's review for at least 6 months. I'd say most of those documents were created over a year ago. So there's some, perception, I think, from the council that this is brand new and this is our first step. We've been at this for a long time. And every question that you could conceivably come up with from a technical standpoint, there's an answer to it already. Whether it's quality, they mentioned the other firm recent with the drainage board, and then Sean's group with CSRS. So we've done a tremendous amount of work on here. And, our thought is, as the applicant, is this was like a housekeeping exercise, like I suggested to you, because the city of Gonzales wants the pumps, they need the pumps, the constituency of Gonzales needs them, and it's only the parish's ordinance, other than their, objective review of the drainage impact study, that which is the parish's role. So, and then on the same goes to Mr. Lawler for the O&M expenses. I have all the backup. I have all of it. I have a contract with a sub-consultant that'll play point on it, and we're certainly going to manage it responsibly. We're going to be there, frankly, for probably another 8 or 10 years, right? Because we've got another 300 or 400 lots to go. I also think it's good to note, and President Quitma made point of this, but I want to make sure we all understand, if or when the full Panama Basin pump station comes into play, this system we're talking about tonight is obsolete. It's no longer needed because that entire basin will be held down at like elevation 1 or 0. So Conway at that point would have plenty of room to drain, And then also just remember, this is not a system it's not a pump system that the community is dependent upon draining because it drains today. It's an enhancement. It's a supplemental drainage station is how I would refer to it. It's going to supplement the existing drainage. It is not going to accommodate, it's not critical for the drainage.
I'm going to make a few more comments.
Sure.
Yeah. First thing first, the HOA. So talking about the HOA, have there been has there been like an open house or any communication with the HOA, a board of directors, or the president, or anything like that? I think it's prudent that we involve the citizens. If we're going to put O&M of a maintenance pump on them financially, I think it's important that they know for the existing residents and the future homeowners that's going to be their responsibility for the foreseeable future. So I would strongly urge y'all to make contact with them and have a formal sit down with them. And look, as long as I'm serving, I will always be of the mindset. So if you'd like to install your pump, internally, and it's going to help, but me personally, I'll always be against this commission at some point in time inheriting that that pump. And so them in the conversations with the HOA, it's important to know that there's a good chance this could be their issue forever, 15, 20 years down the road. And my last thing is I know they got a few more phases, to Conway, and I've been in there a few times, and and all that stuff. So I would really urge parish staff or ERA and the city of Gonzales to really dissect the future phases before they get approved, to make sure that, you know, we're fixing one problem, but we're not going to create any more in the future. So that'll be my comments on it. Now I'm going to go back to Mr. Robert.
I did want to address a few of those comments, and beginning with, we'll go to the most recent first. If that pump station, or when that pump station is done in Sorrento, without these pumps, it still wouldn't work, because right now the outfall of the subdivision is at 4 foot, not 1.9 foot, and your culverts are 95%. So no, this pumps would still be necessary. Secondly, the level of the basin, I've lived there for 42 years of my life, within half a mile, has not changed. What has changed, and I also know this because I've ridden throughout Conway on my dirt bike, behind it, pipelines throughout, from beginning of the development throughout it. Conway has made some changes. If there is any changes to the outfall, it's because Conway Development placed the dirt there to change it. I know for a fact that the basin has not changed in any way that dramatically as far as the level. And honestly, the one main thing that I want to address and make sure, and I wouldn't have an issue approving this tonight, is this is really just to pump whenever you're saying there's not an event going on. You're keeping these ponds pumped down, and you're not going to pump during an event. Is that what I'm hearing?
The system is set up, it'll be like on a, automated setup, where anytime the water level gets above the elevation 2,
Yeah.
it pumps down to like 1.5. I think
Now,
it's 1.2.
If for
And so-
whatever reason we can actually put that in language tonight, I have no issue with the rest of these wrinkles and the rest of these details getting ironed out through the process. That's just one thing that I feel would protect the other side of it, in the sense of, I don't want to put more of a burden on people outside of the development with this. And that, in my mind, would
Sure.
solve that issue.
Yeah, it would run any time the level got above that, so.
Yeah, if we could put that in
And
there,
then-
I'd be good.
Just so,
Back to my motion, with the
Well, if you add
caveats
mine in
that.
there, I'll second it.
And
Well,
Joel,
like I said, Sean's got to clarify what the qualifying issues are, but, and I agree that would be a good addition.
I mean, and that's a game changer, without a doubt.
the outfall pipes are at 1.75 feet.
Yeah.
So, not at 4, so they will work
Yeah.
if the basin dropped to.
But what I'm saying is
to-
outfall pipes go into a 4-foot elevation.
That's
before
right,
it
but that
gets to
4 foot
anything.
would become 1 someday with the Panama project.
Yeah.
That was what I was referencing.
Is that an
that-
accurate statement, Mr. President?
That 4 foot is on y'all's property, right?
So the basin has not changed, as Mr. Board Member Robert has expressed. This is a situation within the development. And because it drains across the interstate and north into that mitigation bank, which has its own hydrological problems, it's in between Conway to the north and Panama to the south. Hackett Canal goes down to the south, and then the outfall ditch to this subdivision goes to the north into there, crossing the interstate, and then having to go all through the MP Evans property north to get to Conway. And so, there's probably some future solutions by utilizing Hackett into Conway. I would prefer to wait for the modeling to look at those specifics, but the basin has not changed. And so, it's in the development. How it happened, I haven't looked into it enough to determine where the problem exists. I just know it exists today, and it's a hardship for the residents there today. And we're
So-
looking for a solution moving forward.
So my question is, with that Panama Canal project, will we be sometime in the future with that big project at 1? Or is this a permanent, is this
No,
permanently
I don't think there's a problem
at 4?
with Panama and Conway today. I think they drain adequate from what they have for decades. Probably even better since we've got chem spray in there to remove other debris and the regular maintenance we've done. probably drains even better today than it has in the past. This is, and you'd have to bring up a map and look at how this development is situated between the two and where it drains, because where it drains on the outfall is one of the biggest issues, and I think Ron will take, because I had them all, I mean, everybody has looked at this. I mean, we have looked at this thing to try to find solutions, because we all know that that development is going to continue to push eastward towards Hackett Canal and continue to be developed. It is a great subdivision, beautiful homes and beautiful residents, but there is a drainage issue on the existing part. This is the solution to help solve some of that has already existed. Our obligation and responsibility is to ensure all future filings, as Chair Malone saw, is not to have this problem exacerbated or, and making sure that it doesn't cause additional problems as they continue to grow the subdivision out. So that's my take, but I have not seen any data, nor has any been presented to me or talked about, that this basin has changed in any kind of form or fashion. It appears to me that it is a problem within the original filing, however it happened.
So are you saying, sorry if I may, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
that you are recommending strongly that we give this waiver?
It would definitely help the existing residents and would not hurt this future filing and having to create additional capacity inside both of these filings. I think that would be a benefit, yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm back to my motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So can we just review the motion one more
Yes.
time so everyone's on the same page?
So my motion is, and I'm gonna go ... at some point and let Sean fill in the blanks, is that we grant this waiver contingent upon the staff's approval of the, and that's where Sean comes in. I think there are 3 or 4 things that, maybe 3 things that you thought needed to have been approved at that point.
My suggestions was, when I'm saying staff, because we're reviewing as the ERA on behalf of the Ascension Drainage District. So
Sure.
I would say staff approval of construction plans, engineering approval, which allowed to proceed with construction. 2 is confirmation, receive necessary permits from the Corps of Engineers. And I believe y'all had a third one.
Is that we are going to have those to where they are only set to come on at an elevation of 2, you said? It's going to pump out to keep it at an elevation of 2?
Don't quote me here tonight.
Well, I'd like to have it to where it's pumped out before, that it's not being, pumps aren't starting at the chance of an event. Now, if you have an elevation for me, like we're talking about elevation 2, I would go with something like that because you have so many feet during that event to be fine with the capacity. So, I mean, I need to have something there.
Right, I'm trying
Or
to
that
figure
it
out
won't
the
be
wording.
pumped during the event.
Hey, Sean, what about
I
a,
think.
hey, Sean, what about
I'm
a
a-
SOP?
it's-
Right, just an operations plan that's
Yeah, a SOP
that's
that
approved by
states
the
when is,
engineer.
Yeah, so that would be your call. Should the operations plan be part of the staff approvals? I'm sure they want to make sure this is a reasonable.
Okay.
That's great. Hartman's provided a lot of great input on what's a reasonable plan for you. Like, don't just say that, I know that the developer was going to do this, but just say, hey, it's going to be on the HOA, and you look at it, this is not even a sustainable financial thing, and somebody, even if it's not you all, is going to fall directly on City of Gonzales or unfairly on the HOA. So that could be start of your approval on the engineering drawings and approval of that the operational thing seems reasonable, but really that's between, in my opinion, City of Gonzales and the developer. We're just, in my opinion, you're reviewing just to make sure that it's a reasonable thing, that doesn't just fall back on you in year 2, that you're in charge of now maintaining it, because they said all they need to do is collect $1 per house for a year, and it didn't work out.
If we don't want them pumping out during the time of a storm, if it's going to
Yeah.
impact downstream, how it
That's-
shouldn't.
So right now, the plans that they have submitted, which I think I got from your recommendation there, but right now what they have submitted is they are greatly discharging than that of the pre-developed flow rate. So normally in our subdivision is like, what is it, 10% flow rate? Because of the pumping mechanism, for this to work, basically they're resetting the pond to wait for a storm event. If you go out there now after a storm, you can see the water in the inlets, it's just sitting there. 2 inches of rain, you got 2 inches in the street.
And I understand that. So what needs to happen is these ponds need to be pumped down so they have the capacity during any type of
I
storm.
absolutely agree.
And what I'm saying, as long as that is in this, that is
Yes,
what
I just
need.
got a little, as an engineer, that hearing specific numbers.
Well, it doesn't have to be a specific number, but it needs
Yeah,
to be
okay.
addressed.
I think that they'll work with us, Sean, through that proposed operations plan. I'm confident that between the city and us and you guys, we'll get that plan all vetted and agreed to with what you're talking about within that plan. We can even send it out to you guys in the review process if we need to.
But once again, like Aaron's saying, that's after tonight, we have no control over it. What type of pond is that like Sorrento does? It will be pumped down? I mean, it's language that that we can put in this to make this work.
And I think what Mr. Valley's saying is they'll have that ability through SCADA, through automation, to be able to dial that in, automatically hitting those water levels to turn the pumps on. And I'm sure that their engineers are going to hit that prime level where that is, and they'll propose that to us. I haven't seen the actual plan yet.
So which, again, I mean, are we?
We can include in the motion that the operating plan, if it's approved by ERA, if it's approved by admin, I mean, I think that.
Well, the operating plan doesn't need to be approved by ERA, it needs to be approved by the city, correct?
Yes.
Sorry. The pumps are not going to prohibit us or get us around your development ordinance. So,
What do you mean? No,
so
I'm
the
not
same
saying
rate
it
of
is, but
flow.
Tonight, we're discussing whether or not we're going to do the pumps, so I
Yeah,
want to
but-
discuss the pumps.
I understand, but you're talking about rate of discharge of our drainage running off our site.
I'm talking about how much more discharge you're going
That's
to
right,
have due to
none.
these pumps running.
We will
So
not.
if you have these pumps not running during an event, or even if you have the capacity of these ponds at a certain percentage pumped down beforehand, that would be something I could assure, hey, I'm approving something
Sure.
tonight that I know will never come back to me
Yeah.
after this approval, but it's going to be okay for my constituents. Because
Yeah, and, Mr.
that's
Robert,
it.
what I'm saying is that the rate of water leaving the site, whether under a pump or under gravity, is going to be compliant to your development ordinance. It may seem like the pumps are going to put more water out.
That's what I'm saying, but
No,
right.
the pumps are not going to put more water than gravity otherwise would leave. to
if
the
you don't
plant.
pump during an event, or as long as
No,
it keeps pumped down.
without condition.
Absolutely not, because you're pumping more water than the
Okay.
gravity is doing during an event. I mean, that's absurd.
Does the city have to grant a waiver for this, or do they?
Allow
Just those.
mechanical pumps.
It's a parish ordinance.
So they have a different regulation than us?
They abide by or.
City of Gonzales, by choice, chose to follow the governing drainage ordinance of this drainage district, and which is the same exact one we use for Ascension Parish for the unincorporated areas.
So they don't have to grant a waiver, they're just going to go whatever we do?
Yes, so what they're always seeking is a letter of approval from the governing drainage district as a condition of them approving a project. We're in a position, we can't give that. It's, between knowing that there is a waiver that's necessary to accommodate this design. So we're really trying to get a position of writing a letter of approval to City of Gonzales. And that letter of approval, that's where it includes some of these conditions that if we're worried about the checks and balances, like City of Gonzales. I'm sorry, we're giving this approval to you, and that some of those conditions could be in that approval letter.
Typically, these checks and balances and any other type of thing are done before our approval, right?
Pardon?
The information for these checks and balances are done before our approval?
No, not.
For
no,
these
not-
plats? 'Cause we
No,
don't
I
have-
use some examples.
Well, we don't have the answers to them.
So that's your, obviously, the position that you're in. Do we keep going to try to answer a whole, some more questions? And then your conditions go down to, I think you're at least going to have one or two, or do you open up to a couple conditions tonight with those and then rely on your staff with parish president and Ron and Hartman
If we were to
Engineering?
defer this to another meeting, would this mess them up, or how would that put them on the timeline?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, so I have a motion from Ms. Casso, which it includes approval from our engineer reviewing agency, from staff, and also an operating procedure that shows it will have no more downstream effects than what our ordinance currently allows. Is that correct? And we have a second by Mr. Wagaspack.
May I add one amendment? I don't think y'all object to. Just that, Jeff, you provide us the financials for the long-term budgeting of these pumps, so we can make sure that's all in order.
Would you like to add that to yours instead of us voting
I'm happy to add
twice?
that to mine. We don't have to go through the motions
Okay,
of
that's the
amendment.
four. All right, that's the 4 bullet points that Ms. Casso has put in her motion. We have a second. Is there any more discussion? Let's see, go ahead and open roll call, please. Wait, is there any objection? Do we need a vote or? Okay. No objection? So move.
Let's go quick.
All right. Look, I am going to ask everyone, so Mr. Lawler has something going on with his son. He really needs to go, so I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best to go through here. Of course, I don't want to neglect any one of their questions and comments, but I just want to give y'all a heads up. All right, item 6B, approval of change order number 1 to the contract with Boone Services LLC for New River Drainage.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Ms. Casso. Any questions? Any objections? So moved. 6C, approval of change order number 3 with Wharton Smith Incorporated for Fish Bayou Control Structure for additional 148. We have a motion by Ms. Casso, a second by Mr. Wagasback. Any questions? Any objection? Hearing none. Item 6D, acceptance of low.
Motion to approve.
All right, acceptance of low responsibility with industrial enterprise. I'd at least like to get the first.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We had a second. We need a vote.
Yeah, okay. All right, so item 6D, we have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Cagnolati. Any question? Any objection? Hearing none. So moved. Item 6E, approval of selection committee recommendation on the following 5 ranked firms: Shutt Surveying, SJB Group, Crescent Engineering and Mapping, Earls and Associates, and Quality Engineering, and approval to enter into a contract for professional surveying and subsurface utility.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Casso, a second by Mr. Lawler. Any questions? Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Item 6F, approval of resolution granting authority to the parish president to accept and allocate federal funding to 2 projects.
Second.
All right. And we have a motion by Ms. Casso, a second by Mr. Robert. I would like to comment, I'm going to make it very brief. So this is federal money we got due to the horrific flooding from May of 21 in that Bluff Swamp area. Ms. Casso has led the charge, and parish president has been by our side the whole time. We want to allocate this $1.65 million to stay in that area. That was the point of the resolution. So item 6G, approval of cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish and U.S. Geological Survey for the operation. And
So moved.
we have a motion by Mr. Lawler, a second by Mr. Robert. Any questions? Any objection? Hearing none. So moved. 6H, request for approval of amendment number 4, Infinity Engineering Consultants LLC for Conway Bayou Pump Station.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robert, a second by Mr. Wagasback. Any questions? Any objection? Hearing none. So moved. So Mr. Lawler can go, but I want us to stick around for the report.
It'll be fine.
Yep, I hope he's okay.
Now,
Okay, all right. Let me give me a little sip of water here.
Then we wouldn't have got any of that done.
Mr. Chairman.
I was rolling through there. All right. So item 7A, our 2022 EA East Ascension Drainage Operations Recap Video. We got a
Chase, I
little-
do want to point out that
Yep.
Jade Robin is out on vacation, and he and I and Johan and Davin really worked together on this video with technology. Thought it'd be good to put a kind of a recap of the last year and a half, kind of going along with the resolution of the struggles over the last couple of years and what we've accomplished as a team, and you all as the district and the administration. So hats off to all of you.
No, good deal. All right, good deal. Nice video. Nice video. It's easy to forget all the big stuff we had going on in the last 18
year and a
months.
half, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Kudos to you. You know, our DPW group as always. As far as your, I'm sorry, I'm looking on. I forgot my iPad. I'm full blown Dempsey Lambert tonight. I got my paper with my pencil trying to keep track. Do we have any questions, comments for Ryan, our parish president? Yeah, Mr. Joe.
Those big golden scissors,
Yeah,
I think it'd be cool, just budget-wise, if each of us had a pair for these events, we could just bring them and we wouldn't have to worry about having to get too many.
Noted.
Let's see, Ms. Casso.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for their work. It's finally to get that Frog Bayou project done after all of these years was monumental. It was a pleasure to be there. It was a great ribbon cutting. It was fun. We really had a good time, and it was great to be there with everybody. And I just cannot thank you all enough for getting that project done. Thank you so much.
Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to thank the board. When you look and you kind of grasp how much was done, not one entity is responsible for it. We're all responsible, and it takes all of us to get to this degree of performance. And so, our hardworking men and women out there, they can't do it without our support. So I want to thank the board and, Ron and Jade and Davin and Johan and the rest of the staff, all those supervisors for pushing their guys every day. But it's when you look back at that video, you're really seeing some true progress. And what we have on the horizon with the Law Ridge Levee starting construction first quarter next year. Currently, the tilt weir system out for bid right now. The finishing up of the New River dredging, they're about to hit Highway 44. We're seeing some real progress there. So huge. And I can tell you that the cleanup from Ida, we were one of the first parishes to get that much work done that quickly. When we finished, other parishes were just getting started. So it is a group effort. This is the only way you can accomplish these things. And so I want to thank everybody involved because it takes everybody. So thank you.
Good deal. Ms. Catinelli, did you have a comment?
Echo what Councilwoman Cazzo said. The progress has been phenomenal. I know we approve the dollars, but you got boots on the ground, and those are the people getting the work done. And we can't thank you guys enough. And I know the New River project got delayed, had some issues, some hiccups, but I look forward to the day next year. I think they said they extended it to May or April of '23, when we can go out there and do a ribbon cutting. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you about the progress on the flood control structure, whether they've gone out for bids on that, or is it still in design?
Yeah, tomorrow, 10 o'clock for the bid. So super excited to get some quotes back on that to see where we are dollar amount wise. We look forward to the dredging finishing up there at that weir and starting that weir project, even though we can start before it gets there, due to they're going to use the existing weir and build that structure right beyond that. So we don't have to wait for them, but super excited to see that one finish up and the other one get started almost in timing wise in that segment of time. So yeah, super excited. They did get delayed for a little bit, but they're really making some true progress now. So we're super excited to see it. So they are performing a lot better. H. Davis Cole was here.
He snuck out.
I don't blame him. But yeah, they're making some real progress. And so we're excited to see him get inside the city of Gonzales and work those logistics, because that's going to be some logistics there once we get into the housing and the structures in Gonzales there. It's going to get tight. So, but we're looking forward to those challenges and assisting them, Boone Services, with the necessary logistics to get it done. And then once they get through Gonzales, then it's on to the weir, and then hopefully that weir project will be kicking off relatively soon.
That, along with the consolidation of the concrete lining on some of the ditches.
Yep.
I think that was very, very smart thinking to consolidate those and get a better quote.
Yep.
So thank y'all for that.
Thank
That'll
you.
be all, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Casso.
Yeah, I don't have to have an answer tonight, Mr. President, but I would like to talk with you in the next few days about the Highway 74 project and where we are with that. No, it's not on the agenda, so it's certainly no need to discuss it now, but I'm anxious to hear about it in the next few days. Thank you, sir.
I'll just piggyback real quick. One thing I'm really excited about that, and we haven't really, seen, I got a little sample a few weeks ago, but what Brian Martinez and his group are working on, right? So the projects are awesome. We're seeing these phenomenal projects that, they've been in the works for years, but we all know the struggles our system has internally, right? We, with the elevations and everything, well, to map every foot of, level 1, 2, 3, and 4 tributaries and put a dollar amount. How much does it cost to cut, this ditch? How much does it cost to dig this ditch and bayou and canal? And so whenever his group is done with that GIS mapping, and we can really, really put a budget to a map and put those visuals together and show the public, okay, look, there's a reason we can't cut your ditch every 6 months, and here's why, right? It would cost us $40 million a year. We got $25 million. So just the information and the knowledge and all that stuff. So honestly, out of everything, except for Lower Ridge Levee, I'm excited about that probably more than anything. But I'm really excited for this new mapping that they've been working on for the last few months, whenever that's ready to unveil, because I think that's going to be a complete game changer, something that we've never had before.
Yeah, so.
So I just want to tease everybody with that a little bit.
So I'm going to tease you a little more. Brian Martinez and his group are doing a phenomenal job. Not only that, what you discussed, but they're also mapping every drainage servitude that we can get our hands on in the public record onto our GIS as well. So we don't have to go hunt for these things. We know exactly where they are, but to turn them off in a layer, as well as H&TB is doing their delivery on the modeling, and they are doing lunch and learns with our staff. And if you thought you were blown away by the first part, wait till you see this. We'd love to make a presentation when we learn the ins and outs of this system. It's very complicated, but we got staff dedicated to learning it, and they're assisting us currently. So wait till you see that. Super exciting where we're headed with the technology. But yeah, kudos to H&TV spending the time with our staff, training them to utilize a lot of this modeling that they've been doing for certainly the past year, if not longer, year and a half. Now we're going to really start to see the benefit of that and start taking our staff internally, utilizing that model to look at different things and different projects instead of having to wait. So kudos to them, and I'm sure Daniel may have some of that in his report, not sure, but I wanted to mention it because it's exciting stuff to come, and it's really exciting to see. So as soon as we learn it, we'll probably have y'all come in groups and take a look at it, because it's good stuff.
Awesome. All right, moving on to 7B, Mr. Tanner, with our H&TB ADAPT floodplain management plan update.
Try to be quick. I know we're running late here.
The last one. Look, while Dan's getting set up, I would like to take this time to remind everyone the open houses. Mr. Monzon sent out an email last week, so if anybody would like to go sit down with H&TB on the 101 for the 30 projects and all that stuff, he emailed us last week, shot a few dates. I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar. We're shooting for the week after Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
going to probably go quick into
Go ahead.
We'll probably go quickly into an adjournment when this is over, so we wish everybody a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving that's
Oh, yeah.
watching this one. Safety on the roads.
Thank you, ma'am.
So for those of y'all who don't know, I'm Dan Tanner. John Monzon's out today, so I'm filling in for him. We got a quick little update on our ADAPT and F&P. So this first slide, we submitted our 95% final draft for comments on October 31st. Like Chase mentioned, we're looking to meet with all y'all to kind of go through that and incorporate y'all's comments for a final submittal by the end of this year. Our team gathered 60 plus concept level projects. We used this prioritization criteria to narrow it down to 30 projects where we did proposed modeling and benefit cost ratios for that. This is mostly stuff that you know of. So this is our list of 30 projects that we came down 2, the column on the left is not significant. It matches with the figure on the next slide to give you some locations of these projects. The benefit cost ratio rank column, you can see the right-of-way maintenance permits, where it's checks where we have where the parish owns right-of-way, where maintenance permits are actually already in hand. And then we have estimated project costs for each project. This includes the land costs when the parish doesn't own the land. The biggest takeaway on this side, it's broken down by district. The biggest takeaway is that a lot of these projects overlap districts. It's really hard. I mean, there's, a project the central location of a detention pond may be in one location, but it's going to have benefits throughout multiple districts. There's a lot going on this slide also, but the main takeaway is that this program we're developing is doable. If the parish has the ability to put about $4 million a year for the next 10 years towards this program, we could get a 75-25 match. Will give us about $16 million a year, roughly $160 million over 10 years. I mean, you can see from the box on the top left, the breakdown of F&P projects. I mean, we could knock out 25 plus of these 30 projects in a 10-year span. So it's doable, and we're moving into this capital improvement planning, and we're really getting into the weeds on moving forward, how we can make this happen. With all the F&P stuff going on, we still have the current existing projects through the ADAPT program. We're really getting involved with the Marvin Road levee improvements, the Bayou Conway pump station expansion projects, and then we're working on grants for, you can see them on the top right, and a couple of FNP projects we're moving into putting together grants for those. Like Chase mentioned, we're looking to meet with all the commissioners and kind of discuss some of these projects and path forward. The biggest thing is submitting grant applications and getting federal dollars to match to make that program work. We're looking to ramp up some public engagement as these projects start coming out. We are going to move with these projects towards PMC type services and more consultant management and get them all moving forward, a part of the ADAPT program. That's it. Short and quick. Any questions?
I'm sorry, let me clear my screen. Any questions for Mr. Tanner? Yeah. Oh, let's see, Mr. President.
So if y'all can come in groups, we can further discuss the financial part of it. We were conservative with $4 million, and the original amount was $5 million. Depending upon the direction of the board, if you choose to start focusing more on these projects instead of some of the smaller projects, we can definitely meet the $5 million. That'll make us $200 million in 10 instead of the number shown. So if our taxes increase, if we dedicate that increase in tax towards it, we can shove that number from up to 200 in a 10-year period. So and that's just a multi-year budgeting process. So we'll look at it continuously and see where we can save money. Super excited to see the Shadows of Manchac Phase 1 come under what we had budgeted for it. So savings like that, we can look to shifting to this program to hopefully hit that $5 million mark in the future. And who knows in 10 years what we'll be taking in for revenue. So some opportunity there to grow that number up to around 200 for sure, if not higher.
If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion for item 8. We have a motion by Ms. Casso, a second by Mr. Cagnolati, and we are adjourned.